What's up, everybody? This is the Hedge Mage, and welcome back to another video and another sideboard guide based on one of the deck lists that I am currently running. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how I sideboard against some of the top decks in the meta with my list for hot dogs. So, if that sounds interesting to you, definitely stick around as we'll be doing a complete overview on exactly how we hope to react to a lot of decks that maybe this deck doesn't have much of a chance against. That being said, if you guys want to support the channel, if you could leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, let's get into how I sideboard with hot dogs. Right, and the first matchup that we're going to be taking a look at is a bit of both Izzet Terror as well as Dimir Terror, because you're probably going to be sideboarding pretty similar against any Tolarian Terror deck. It's definitely a pretty tough matchup for this deck. Any well-placed counterspell can really shut us down pretty good, especially if they just counter the Tainted Strike and then have a well-placed removal for our single creature. We kind of just fold to any deck that runs that. So a lot of the top meta decks. However, if you catch them with their pants down, you can definitely get a win with this deck when people tap out when they're really not expecting you to go as hard and as fast as you do with it. All right, but the first thing that I want to bring in against Terra is definitely we're going to want to bring in 4 copies of Pyroblast, as they do have counter spells, so we are going to have to counter their counterspell. So we need some protection there with Pyroblast. And I'm going to take out the 4 copies of Mutagenic Growth. Even though Mutagenic Growth is a very good card, it does cost us life, and the fact that they are swinging at us with some big creatures like, 5/5s or 6/5s with the Cryptic Serpents and the Tolarian Terrors. We're going to take out these Mutagenic Growths just so we have as much as life as we possibly can. And when that eventually happens, and bring in those 4 Pyroblasts. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out these 3 copies of Lava Dart. Even though Lava Dart is an amazing spell for the deck, I'm going to take those out. And I'm going to bring in 3 copies of Nihil Spellbomb, as we're going to want to kind of shut down the Tolarian Terror decks as soon as we can with those spell bombs. And another thing that I'm going to bring in is I'm going to take out this 1 Reckless Charge and bring in a 4th copy of Apostle's Blessing, as they do have instant speed removal. Um, so we're going to want to make sure our creatures are getting through. Not to mention, if they do have blockers, we can give them protection from that color. Um, which makes it so we can hopefully get that damage through, which is kind of one of the few ways that we're going to win with this deck. Also, I'm going to be taking out, let's see, this 1 copy of Fling and bringing in this copy of Duress. Duress is going to be really good against them, so we can take out their counter spells or their removal from their hand. Also, can kind of see what they're sitting on, so we can maybe play around that. So that is how I would sideboard against basically any deck running Tolarian Terror. The next matchup that we're taking a look at now is Dimir Faeries, which is going to be a very similar. We're going to sideboard very similar to how we would sideboard against the Tolarian Terror decks. So we're definitely going to want to bring in our Apostle's Blessing. So I'll take out this copy of Reckless Charge for that. We're also going to want to make sure we bring in our Duress. So again, we're taking out our copy of Fling. And since they have counter spells, we also have to have counter spells as well. So I will be taking, though it does feel bad as mutagenic growth is a free spell, I think making sure we have all of our ancestral angers and our crash throughs so that we can draw cards, as well as assault strobe since it does give us double strike, which is a key part of the combo. So we're going to take out the mutagenic growth and bring in 4 copies of Pyroblast. And one of the beautiful parts about Pyroblast as well is the way that the text is written on the card. We can also target our own spells to get more of a count with our Kiln Fiends or more triggers with the Kiln Fiends and the Festival Crashers. So Pyroblast is very good for the deck, can have multiple uses, can counter spell, can just help you win 2 out of nowhere. And that's pretty much how I would sideboard against fairies. Very similar to how we go against terror. Um, the main difference is we're not going to need a graveyard hate as much against fairies. They do, some decks are running not Tolarian Terrors, Gurmag Anglers, which are definitely a threat, but that's not some that most of the lists I've seen are maybe running 1 or 2, so it's not really something we need to be worried about. Mostly need to make sure we're able to win early on in the game, and so that's why we want to make sure we can tempo them with the Pyroblast and an extra Apostle's Blessing, as well as the Duress. In the next deck that we are looking at, or the next matchup that we are going to be looking at and how we're going to be sideboarding against, is Golgari Gardens, which is also another pretty tough matchup for this deck as they have a ton of removal. So we're honestly not going to be siding in a ton of stuff against them. I think the main things that we want to side in is we're going to want to side in a duress because we need to make sure we get rid of their interaction. They have a lot of it though, so it is definitely going to be an uphill battle. So we'll take out that reckless charge. And then I'm going to take out Fling again against them and bring in Apostle's Blessing, since the main thing that we're going to want to be able to do is make sure either A, they don't have removal for our creatures, so obviously duress, and B, they can't target our creatures, so Apostle's Blessing. So you definitely are going to want to have be 4 Apostle's Blessing in that game. And that deck does tend to tap out a lot, especially in the early game. So you might be able to get the drop on them in game one, and then it is just trying to do your best in the following game. So having 4 Apostles' Blessings is definitely gonna help, and that 1 copy of Duress, you're definitely gonna want to mulligan pretty aggressively with this deck on games 2 and 3, especially to try and get a hand where you can either take away any of their interaction, nullify any of their interaction, and try to win as early as possible. Because the longer the game goes on against Gardens, the less likely you are going to be able to win with a deck that has a strategy like this one. Right, and the next matchup that we're taking a look at now is All That Glitters, which can be any combination of affinity. It's like white X basically at this point. You could be seeing Orzhov, Jeskai, Azorius, Boros even. Um, Basically any deck that has access to a bunch of artifacts, which any deck does, as well as white mana. They can play All the Glitters and it will probably be a good deck. Though the Azorius, I think, Azorius and Jeskai are probably the main varieties that you're going to see in the upper echelons of the meta. But either way, no matter what type of glitters affinity you're going up against, you're going to be sideboarding pretty similarly. All right, and so we're going to take out this reckless charge again. We're going to bring in a duress. Now, this is mostly so that we can get rid of either we want to get rid of their metallic rebuke or their all that glitters. Those are going to be the 2 main targets. If it's Jeskai, you might also want to get rid of the galvanic blast. Basically, their interaction as well as their win con. And then another thing that we are going to be bringing in, we're going to be taking out our 3 copies of Lava Dart. And we're going to bring in 3 copies of Raise the Effigy. And this card is very good for the deck as it has 2 modes. So for 1 mana, we can either destroy an artifact or target attacking creature gets +2/+2. So if they're kind of fizzling out, we can also use this card to try and get our win. So very nice card for the deck. Another thing that I want to bring in is I also want to take out this fling again and bring in another Apostle's Blessing. And the reason is that uh we can gain protection from artifacts. So if they only have artifacts on the field, we can make our creature unblockable. So I definitely want to make sure that we're winning as fast as possible against all that glitters, because once they get a creature with evasion, like say an ornithopter or something with all that glitters on it, there's not going to be a whole lot that this deck does, as we don't really run much removal. We're just trying to win as fast as possible with our own creatures, by getting them up to a power of 10 or above with double strike and trample and infect. So uh, making sure that they're unblockable against their Murr Enforcers or their Frogmites is definitely going to be very pivotal in that matchup. So, yeah, definitely want to bring in the other copy of Apostle's Blessing against them. And now we're on to the last matchup that we're going to be taking a look at with this deck. That matchup is Kuldotha Red. So basically, against Kuldotha Red, you want to be as fast as you absolutely can. And honestly, there's really only one card that we're going to bring in against Kuldotha Red. Actually, we're going to bring in two. We're going to bring in 2 cards against Kuldotha Red. So we're probably sideboarding the least against them. We're going to take out Fling. Oh, Fling is a really good card. I definitely want to make sure I'm protecting my creatures with the Apostle's Blessing. So we're going to go up to 4 Apostle's Blessing against Kuldotha. Now, Fling can be really good in game 1 when we draw it and we get our creature above 20 and then just fling it after slinging a bunch of spells. But we're going to want to make sure our creatures are staying on the battlefield against a mono red deck, as they have access to Chain Lightnings, Lightning Bolts, Galvanic Blasts, lava darts, etc., fire blasts. They have so much removal against us. All of it hurts our creatures. So we're going to be bringing in this Apostle's Blessing. Also going to be taking out this Reckless Charge and bringing in a Duress so that we can take that removal away from them. But that's all I would sideboard in against Kuldotha. Right now on my list, or in the sideboard, I don't have any instant speed sweepers. That is also another option, as that is seems to be one of the better ways to deal with Kuldotha, especially shutting them down when they have that early game Kuldotha rebirth into Goblin Blast Runner. Or Bushwhacker, rather. Blast Runner is the one that gets Menace. My apologies. But yeah, anyways, you kind of want to tempo them out before they swing at you for like over 10 damage. Uh, but anyways, that's how I would sideboard against Kuldotha. Really don't have a lot against them, so that it can be a very tough matchup, especially with all the removal and how fast that deck can be. Really, what you want to do is be able to outrace them. So if you play your Kiln Fiend on turn 2, you're definitely going to want to have a mutagenic growth in hand so that you can protect it, or play it on turn 3 with an Apostle's Blessing in hand so that you can protect it that way as well, because you need to untap while they are tapped out, which, definitely sounds like a hope and a prayer. Definitely going against the top meta decks with hot dogs in general. You are very much a glass cannon, so if you aren't getting the god draws on all of your games, it can be really, really tough. So, but when all does go well, I would say this deck is a lot of fun to pilot and play, because when you are swinging on turn 3 for over 10 damage double strike infect, it's just That's just kind of what dreams are made of. But anyways, love to hear what you guys think of this sideboard tech. Is there cards in this that I'm not running in my sideboard that you think are worth taking a look at? Let me know in the comments section below. As always, guys, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you all next time.